Hello, my name is Robert SK. Welcome to the second session about introduction to Photoshop. And in this video, we are going to look at the tools, the different tools and what they do. When you look on your left of the interface of Photoshop, you'll find different tools from top to bottom. You see from on the left here, we have the move tool, the rectangular mark tool, the lasso tool, the quick selection, the object selection. All those tools, you're going to look at them, and we are going to see which tool does it for us when you're doing more of photography. Yes, without wasting time, let's get started. When you come to the left here, you find the first tool here is the move tool. The shortcut is V, and the move tool helps you to move certain layers that you've selected. For example, if I come to my layers this side, when I select this first layer, you see that I'll be moving that watermark there, and if I select the second layer, I'll be moving that. So my move tool helps me with that, basically. And when you look at the side, the side of the layer, you see what you call as the transform controls. So when you select one of them, it will help you to scale up and down, to help you to rotate your image, to help you with more of transformation. To distort, there is what you call distortion. For example, when you hold down command, you see that there is what we call distortion and skewing. So that is what move tool basically does. So take an example. If you have a layer like this one that is locked and you want to work with the move tool, it will first unlock that layer in order to move. In earlier versions of Photoshop, you couldn't move it simply because the background is locked. But now the fact that the tool opens the background by itself, then it will move. There is what we call auto select here. When you come to the options menu, auto select helps you select a certain layer automatically without having to go to layers. For example, if I'm on a certain layer like this one and I want to select this big layer, it will be automatic. If I want to select a small layer, I'll just come to it like that. That is what auto select does. If I want to select a big layer, I'll come to it like that. So that is what the auto select will help you with. Then we have the artboard tool. We don't normally use that in Photoshop, but what I use it for framing. For example, if I want a white border on my image, I can use the artboard tool. If I want a certain border, be it white or gray, like that, I can use it, but I rarely use that. Then when you come to the next tool here, we have the rectangular mark tool. You can call it the mark tool or the marquee tool. This tool helps you to draw selections in the shape of a rectangle. A selection like that one. This is what we call a selection. A selection helps you to work with a certain area. For example, if I want to work with this area down here, I'll just draw that selection, and maybe if I want to increase light, I'll do that in only that area that I've selected. That is what we call a selection. And then we have the elliptical mark tool. It does the same thing, but in an elliptical form, or in a circular form, in a round form. So you find that now our selection is kind of round, or elliptical, or circular, or oval in shape, something like that. And when you get down here, you find what you call the lasso tool. Okay, before going further, when you look at the elliptical tool, sorry, the mark tool, the rectangle and the elliptical mark tool, when I'm doing a selection, you'll see that above here there is what you call There are different options here on the options menu, and when I'm working with the selection, this option will help me draw a new selection. Then the second option here will help me add to that selection. If I want to add to that selection, I'll select this and maybe add to that, so my selection will become bigger. And if I want to subtract from that selection, I will come to the next option and my selection will be getting smaller, just like you see there. Yes. Then the next tool helps me to intersect between selections. It will just give me the area where two selections intersect, the one I've found and the one I'm drawing. So basically that is it. And when you look at the next option here, we have the feather. The feather helps you to smoothen your selection. For example, if I'm having a rectangular selection like that, and if I give it a feather, if I draw it at a feather which is 0 like that, then if I'm to compare it with a feather radius which is bigger than 0, for example 50, and I'm adding that, you find that this selection will be smoother. My corners will be smoother compared to this selection that I drew with feather radius 0. This one I drew it at feather radius 70, so it will be softer at the edges. So that is what we call feather. Basically that is more what the mark tool, the rectangular and the elliptical mark tool do. The shortcut is letter M. If you want to go to it very fast, you just press letter M on your keyboard. Then the next tool is a lasso tool. The lasso tool has a shortcut letter L. When you look on the right side of each tool, you see the shortcut. This one is the lasso tool. The lasso tool will help us draw a freehand selection, just like that. The other time we were drawing a selection which is freehand, but in a certain in a particular shape, according to a shape. But now this one, it is freehand and the shape is kind of irregular. It is you that draws your custom shape. For example, if I want to draw a shape around the head, I can use my lasso tool like that. Or maybe around the face, I can do that. So that is what my lasso tool does. And same here, you see that when you want to add to selection, you come to the next option. When you want to subtract from the selection, you come to the third option. Then to intersect between selections, this will help you do that, the fourth one. Then the feather radius does the same. If you have a feather radius at 0, you have edges that are kind of sharp. Then if you have your feather radius up somewhere, you have smooth edges. Yes, basically that is the lasso tool. Going further to that, we have the Polygonal Lasso tool. The Polygonal Lasso tool does the same as the lasso tool, but now it gives you straight edged selections, just like that. So with the Polygonal Lasso tool, you will have to draw your path of the selection, and in order to complete that path, the selection, you have to go to the starting point. You go until you go back to the starting point, and when you click, you will find that you have the selection complete. A difference between the Polygonal Lasso tool and the lasso tool. The lasso tool, first of all, you just click and drag like that. You hold down your mouse and you keep dragging. The moment you release your mouse, your selection will be complete. But when it comes to the Polygonal Lasso tool, you can release the mouse and you keep drawing what you call anchor points, like that. Different points of the edged selection until you go to the to the starting point in order to complete the selection. Basically something like that. So if I come to the next tool, it is called the magnetic lasso tool. The magnetic lasso tool is more of an automatic tool. When it comes to that, it just keeps drawing the selection, detecting the edge of the image, and it will give you that. You just click, you just click your mouse once, and you just keep moving your mouse around. You don't even need to hold it down. It will just be snapping a selection like that, and you have to do that until you go back to the starting point in order to complete your selection. This is not a perfect tool, that is why we don't use it so much. So that is basically here on the lasso tools, you mainly use the lasso tool and the polygonal lasso tool. Yes. Then the next tool is the object selection tool. The shortcut is W. It will automatically find an object inside your workspace or your image, and it will select it. The moment you draw over an object like that one, it will detect it automatically and give you a selection. If I draw over an object like this, it will detect it automatically and give me a selection onto that, depending on which shape I want. If I want it to be kinda custom, I will use the lasso option here on the options bar, and it will give me that, the same thing. The shortcut is W. When you come to the next tool, you have the quick selection tool. It will give you the quick selection tool will help you draw your selection by finding and following the edge of an image. So basically, in simple terms, the quick selection tool helps you to draw the selection according to color and maybe tone. For example, the moment I click here, I will have my selection around the edge of that tone, and it won't go into that. But if I do it with maybe an object selection, you'll find that it will detect the somewhere like the whole face. So that is the difference. The quick selection will help you select according to color, according to tone, and it will select surfaces, just like you see there. The moment there is a difference in toning, that is where the selection edge will end. And if you want to add to selection, you use the second option here to add on to your selection. You want to subtract from your selection, you use the third option. Yes, basically that is it for the quick selection tool. When you're working with the quick selection tool and maybe the object selection, there is an option here of select subject. This will help you to create your selection over the prominent objects in the image. Basically the prominent objects are maybe if you have a portrait of a person, the feature will trace the person automatically and will give you the selection of that subject, just like you see there. So if I'm to click on select subject, you see that it will be somehow automatic, and it will give you a selection of the person. That is what select subject does. And when you go to the next tool here, we have what we call the magic wand. It selects similarly colored surfaces in the image. For example, if I'm to select the green surface like that, or maybe this orange surface, it will give you that, specifically that. You see, I've selected the forehead, but it only gave me the area that I've selected in the toning, the mid-tone. If I'm to select in the highlight, it will detect that alone. If I'm to select this side, that is what it will give me. And maybe if I just want to add to that selection, that is when I'll be able to select and adding on to my selection. If I want to subtract, I'll go to the next option, just like I was explaining in the earlier tools on your options menu. Yeah, and that is what we will have. Basically, that is it for the object selection, quick selection, and magic wand. Your shortcut for those tools is W. Then we have the next tool here. The next tool here is called the crop tool. The crop tool has a shortcut of letter C. It helps you to trim, to frame, to expand the edges of your image. This is what it will do. For example, if I want to trim like that, I'll use a crop tool. And it will crop it down. When you look at the before and the after, this is what it did. And if I want to crop it to a certain ratio, for example 1:1, 1:1 is more of a square, just like that, it will give me my frame in that kind of orientation. If I'm to crop 2:3, I'll have something of 2:3 width by height. This is what along this is what we call the width, and this side is a height. Yes, basically that is it when you're cropping with a ratio. When you select and you click in your image to confirm, there is a tick here when you want to confirm what you're cropping, and in order to revert that, there is a cancel option here in order to cancel that. Then there is an option of working with the ratio when you're cropping. Then you can work with dimensions, width by height, by resolution. You select there, and in that first box you feed in the width. For example, if I want to feed in 8 inches by 10 inches, then I'll give it a resolution of 300 pixels per inch. Then I'll confirm that. This will help you resize your image to those particular dimensions that you've put in your options menu of the crop tool. You find that now it is becoming a little bit smaller when you look at it. If I'm to go back and you see the difference, the before and the after, okay, this is how it looked like when you cropped. And that is how it was when you didn't crop. So basically that is what the crop tool does. Then the perspective tool, it just gives you the cropping in a perspective way. So if I'm to draw my perspective crop like that, it will be kind of custom when you're working with it. That is what the perspective tool does for you. It gives you correct distortions caused by the perspective. That is what it does, but we mainly use the crop tool when we are doing photography. Then when you get to the eyedropper tool, the eyedropper tool helps you to select a certain color. We call it sampling. It helps you to sample a certain color and feed it into the foreground here. There is what we call the foreground color, the color that is in this upper box of the layer. When you come to the lower left corner, when I select this, you see that it will change to that color. When I select green, that is what I will have. Then when I select to the skin, that is what I will have. So basically the eyedropper does that. The color sampler tool, we don't use that. Okay, we can use that maybe to sample certain values of the color. If you want to look at the RGB of the point sample that you've just clicked on, but I don't find it useful for me as yet. Yes, then the next tool is the spot healing brush. The spot healing brush The spot healing brush helps you to remove masks and blemishes. I normally use it when I'm removing small pimples and spots from the skin, just like that. When you click over a blemish, maybe a pimple, you have it go away like that. So basically that is what the spot healing brush does. And then the next tool is a healing brush. It repairs pixels, or it does the same thing of removing blemishes, but now manually, while sampling from another part of the subject. In order to do that, I have to hold down Alt to sample from a good area, and I paste over a bad area. For example, if I want to remove this pimple right here, I'll come to the area just next to it and hold down my options bar or alt bar on my Mac. I click on that, then I click over the pimple. What you do, you hold down Alt, you click on a good area, you release the Alt and click on a pimple, just like that. But when you're working with this, you have to make sure, if I'm working with a pimple that is in highlights like that, I can't sample from a dark area like this, then I paste over that. I'll have traces of my brush. Then same thing, I can't click from a good area that is light to paste over a blemish that is in a dark area. So basically I have to work with the same tone. If I'm to work in highlights, I have to click from highlights and sample over the highlights. Then same applies to shadows and midtones. You hold down Alt, you click a good area, you release the Alt and click over the pimple. Basically that is how simple that is. And you see that it helps you to remove all that. If I show you the before of this, you'll be surprised on how I've removed all those pimples from the face. See all those pimples that we had. Going to the next tool, we have the patch tool. The patch tool helps you replace a selected area using a pattern from another part of the image. For example, if I want to replace this, I'll just click and drag onto a good area like that. It's just replacing pixels from another area. I can do that just to show you an example, but I can't apply that when I'm working with a client's image. So you see that it can help you to work with bigger blemishes. It helps you to patch up if you have bigger blemishes. Just like you see there, you draw a selection over a bad area, for example that hair, then you drag onto an area that doesn't have that to clear that. So basically that is how I apply it. And when you're working with it on the screen, you mind not to leave traces of that behind. You have to keep it as small as possible, and you work with a certain tone alone. For example, if you're working in highlights, you have to keep it in highlights. If you're working in shadows, you have to keep it in shadows, just like that. Yes, that is it for the patch tool. Then we have the content aware tool. Selects and moves part of an image and fills it automatically with the area that is left behind. For example, if I'm working with the content aware tool, then I draw and drag to that area. When I confirm, you'll find that it will fill this with a certain area, but I rarely apply this. When you go to the next tool, you have the brush tool. The brush tool paints custom brush strokes, but it will be painting now a foreground color. The color that is up here, remember when we were talking about the eyedropper tool? The color the eyedropper tool samples is what now the brush tool paints. In order to you can work with it, when you can increase the size of the diameter by right clicking. Then that is basically what it does. It just helps you paint custom colors over a subject like that. I normally apply this when I'm working with graphics to play with color. When you're looking at that brush tool, things to look at when you come to the options menu. 1 is the opacity, 2 is the flow, then the smoothing, then we have the hardness of the brush. If we are to take an example, the opacity of the brush gives you small amounts of the paint when you paint if you keep it low. If you keep it low, you have small amounts. If you keep it high, you have huge amounts of the brush, of the paint, sorry. Then the flow just helps you to work with the flow shows how many times you have to paint over and over to attain the maximum color in your paint. So if you keep your flow at minimum, you have to do a lot of painting over and over to have all your paint posted on the image. Then when you right click on that, you have the size of the brush, then the hardness. If you keep your hardness at maximum, you have hard brushes. The hardness of the edges will be hard, and if you keep it minimal, you have it at that. That is the difference. So basically that is what the brush tool does, and the shortcut for the brush tool is B when you look at that. Then you have the pencil tool. This is mainly used by people that sketch, the people that draw cartoons, but it has a pencil tip that you use to draw, but drawing the foreground color still. If I'm to zoom in a little bit, you see that it is drawing a color that I've just selected in the foreground, just like you see there. So basically that is what the pencil tool does for me, but I rarely apply it in photography. I haven't used it. Then when you come to the next tool, you have the clone stamp. The clone stamp has a shortcut of letter S on your keyboard. What it does, it paints pixels from another part of your image. And in order to do that, you have to sample, just like you are using in the healing brush. You have to alt click, to hold down alt or options. You have to hold down alt or options to copy and paste on a certain area. So it copies and pastes parts of an image to another image. So you hold down option to copy, then in order to paste, you release the options key or the alt key, and you click on that area that you want. What I normally use it for, I use it for copying and pasting maybe good texture to bad texture. If I'm to keep my opacity and flow at a low value, I normally use it when I'm working on scale, just like you see there. So if I'm to show you how it was before, the changes are very minimal, but you're going to see that is what it was before. So basically that is what the clone stamp does. We have the opacity here and the flow of the brush, then the hardness of the brush, then the size of the brush. So basically that is it for the clone stamp tool. Then the pattern stamp helps you paint, helps you draw a pattern that is selected in this area. For example, my pattern is this. It is trees. So if I'm to draw that, I'll have tree leaves in my image. That is what the pattern stamp does. I don't really use that in photography, I use it in graphics. The shortcut for both of those tools is letter S. Then when you go to the history brush here, I still have my pattern. If you go to the history brush here, the next tool is called the history brush and the shortcut is letter Y. And when if you're to use the history brush helps you to take back your image. It restores part of the image to an earlier state. The earlier state is the state in which you imported your image at. So if I'm to pass the history brush over that, you find that I will have everything the way it was when I imported my image. So basically that is what the history brush does. It brings back history. It brings back the way the image came in. It takes back that point that you just painted. Then the art history brush area, I don't use it. When you go to the next tool here, we have the eraser tool. The eraser tool helps you to paint or to erase. I call it painting because it is painting the background color, or it erases pixels from the image to the background color. What we had up here, this pink, is a foreground color, and the one behind it is a background color. So the color that you have there is what the eraser tool paints, provided your layer here is locked. If your layer is unlocked like that, you find that the eraser tool removes the pixels, it deletes your image to transparency. That's what I can say. It makes them transparent. So if I'm to change my color here to another color of the background, and I have my image locked, my layer locked, that is what I'll have. It will be painting the background color. So basically that is what the eraser tool does. Then we have the background eraser. It erases the pixels of a sampled color. So if I'm to erase a background of, this is what it does. If I'm to erase my background like that, I'm erasing the whites alone. You see that the effect on the other colors is not so strong. So that is what the eraser the background eraser does. And the moment you click with the background eraser, you find your the moment you work with the background eraser, you find your layer here unlocked automatically, and the background eraser will erase everything to transparency, just like you see there. Then you have the magic eraser. The magic eraser, it helps you erase similarly colored surfaces in your image with a single click. You just click once and you'll erase all that white that is there. You click once and you'll erase all that white that is there. So that is what the magic eraser does. And the moment you click, your background will be unlocked, your background layer will be unlocked, and it will be transparent there and then. Basically those are the eraser tools. The shortcut for eraser is E. Then we have the gradient tool. The gradient tool helps you create a gradual blend between colors. Showing you an example, if I have two colors, maybe blue and white, and I'm going to draw that. Sorry about that. if I'm to draw that over that, you see that my opacity at 100. Okay, this is what it does. It is fading from light blue to white. So it is a gradual kind of change between two colors. If I'm to give it a darker color, you see a difference. So this is what we call gradient. Those, you see that two colors are blending gradually between the dark blue to light blue, then to white, depending on which color you've selected. Here, if I'm to select another color, maybe red, I'll have the same thing for that red. If I'm to select black and white, I'll have black and white. So basically, that is what we call gradient in an image. And that is what the gradient tool does. So most of the time it samples from the foreground and the background color to give you which colors to blend between. So if I'm having maybe blue, sky blue, and red as my background color, it will be blending between sky blue and red when you look at the options menu here. That is what I will have. But you can select your own color when you come to that color picker here, of the gradient picker. Then the next tool is a blur tool. The blur tool doesn't have a shortcut yet, but you can set your shortcut to anything, to any letter that you want. We shall be seeing that. The blur tool helps you to blur out parts of the image. Blurring out is like removing detail from the image. So if I'm to paint over that area, you see that I'll be losing texture. Basically, that is what the blur tool does. Then the smudge tool, I rarely use that. Then when you go to the next tool, you have the sharpen tool. The sharpen tool, let me make it a little bit bigger. Just like you hear the word sharpen, the sharpen tool helps you to sharpen the soft areas of the image. It brings back focus or brings back texture in your image. Then when you go to the dodge tool here, the next tool is called the dodge tool. The shortcut for dodge tool is O. Same with burn tool and the sponge tool. The dodge tool helps you lighten areas of an image. It adds more light, just like you see there. And to add light in certain areas, that is what I'll do with the dodge tool. And it will depend on which exposure you've set, the exposure value you set here at which percentage, to give you a certain amount of light in your image. And the range that you select here is what the focus will be on. If I select shadows, the focus of the effect will be in shadows more than the other tones. Then if I select highlight, the focus of the effect will be in more of that. Basically, that is what the dodge tool does. And the next tool is the burn tool. The burn tool is now the opposite of the dodge tool. The burn tool helps you to darken. It helps you to darken areas in an image. Just like you see that it is like you're taking it back to where it was before dodging. But when you take it overboard, you find it distorting the tones and the colors. So you have to play with it at a low exposure percentage here. And maybe you have to select a particular color range that you're going to work with. The tone range. The sponge tool, I rarely use that. So the next tool is called the horizontal type tool and the vertical type tool. This is simply, it helps you add text to your image. The horizontal type tool does it horizontally. So when you highlight, you go to your keyboard and you type. Then to confirm, you just tick here, and you can see what the horizontal type tool just did. Then the vertical type tool is the next tool. It will give you text but in a vertical way. The vertical type tool will give you text in a vertical way, just like you see what I've done here. And to confirm that, you see that that is what the vertical type tool does. When you come to the options of the type tool, you find that you have the here you're toggling between which tool to use, a vertical or the horizontal. Then the next option helps you to select the font type. For example, if I'm to change my font type to another one, I'll just come here and change. Then the next one will help you to select between regular, italic, bold, just like you see there. If I'm to select a normal font like Arial, you see that you can toggle between regular, italic, bold, and bold italic. Then the next one here is the font size. You can increase your font size if you want, and you can reduce it if you want. Then here the next option here, these three options here, we have the alignment of the text. Here you're aligning left, here you're aligning center, and here you're aligning right. The other thing to look at is font color. The font color is right here. If you want to choose a certain color, you just come here and use a color picker, or you can sample from this, and then you confirm which font color to use. So basically that is it for the type tool. This option here gives you more gives you warped text. It can help you to do some creativity with your font. Maybe you want to change it, to warp it up, or to put an effect in your font. That is what it will help you to do. It will help you to warp the text. So basically that is what the type tool does, the horizontal and the vertical type tool. Then the next tool is called the pen tool. The pen tool will help you to make selection using paths and shapes. For example, this is what we call a path. The path is this one. It has anchor points, just like you see there. So if you're to work with a pen tool, you're going to be working with paths like that, and when you have to draw up, you have to click from the starting point until you go back to that point. Then in order to make the selection, you can just come here and you click on make selection, you give it a feather radius, then you press OK. Initially we just used to right click on our path like that, then you click on make selection. Still you could give us a feather radius and you feed in just like that. If you're already having an existing selection and want to add on to that selection, you just draw the other path. Then when you click on make selection, you come here to add to selection, and you click onto that. When you draw, if you want to subtract from the path, from the selection, you draw your path, then you make selection and you subtract from selection, then you click OK. Something like that. So basically that is what we have. If you want to draw a shape, you can come here, up here on the options bar, then you change the path to the shape. The shape will be colored here and the stroke of the shape will be there. So if you want to draw a certain shape that is customized, you can have it like that. And if you want to make selection of that shape, you just simply do that. So basically that is what the pen tool does. These points that I keep on clicking like this are what we call the anchor points. Let me use the path. These are what we call the anchor points, like that. The advantage of the pen tool over the lasso tools and the other selection tools is that, first of all, it gives you control of the selection because you can draw a customized selection. Then secondly, it can draw curves and straight lines at the same time. In one tool you can do both. You see that here I had a curve, I had a straight line, and here I have a curve. So I can go back to a straight line, then I can draw curves. So you can work with a certain area, with a certain image easily when you're drawing with these anchor points of the pen tool. Then the other thing is that with the lasso tools, the moment you release the tool, your selection is complete, or with the lasso tools. Then with the pen tool, you have to draw the path, and it gives you control. You can even adjust your path. For example, if I want to change that curve, I can do that. If I want to change that, I can do that. Something like that. If I want to add another anchor point, I can do that. If I want to convert my curve, I can still do that. So this helps you give more control. You can change a curve to a path. You can change a curve to a straight line. You can change a straight line to a curve. So basically, that is why the pen tool is better than the other selection tools. If I'm to work with the selection, I prefer the pen tool because it takes time, but it gives you the perfect selection. You don't have to keep on adding and subtracting. So when I right click on the pen tool, I have the freedom pen tool. The freedom pen tool, you just draw freehand of the path, just like the lasso tool, but now this is a path of a pen tool, and I don't find this very, very accurate. So I prefer the pen tool. The shortcut for pen tool is letter P. So below that we have other options of the pen tool. We have add anchor point tool. When you want to add another anchor point onto the path, you just come to where you want to add that, then you click. You're free to adjust it. When you add an anchor point, you're free to change it to a curve, to change it to a line. And if I want to delete anchor point, I just come to an existing point and I delete it like that. I click on it in order to delete it. Then in order to convert a point, this is when I'm changing the point to a curve or to a straight line. So basically that is what conversion means, convert point tool. Then the next tool is the path selection tool. This path selection tool is this blue thing here you see is what we call a path. So the path selection tool helps you to select the path. For example, if I have more than one paths in one image, switching between the two paths, I'll use the path selection tool like that. First of all, it helps you to select a certain path. Then secondly, it will help you to move that path around. So basically that is what the path tool does, and maybe the direct selection tool does the same thing, but now you can keep on it helps you to select directly and maybe to do adjustments. The path selection helps you to move and to select. So basically that is it for the path selection and the direct selection. The other tool that we have here is a hand tool. The hand tool, it helps you to move your workspace around. Basically that is what I can say. It helps you to pan your image from the left to the right, up to down, something like that. If maybe you zoom in your image a lot and want to see somewhere, maybe the forehead, you just drag you click and drag with your hand tool, just like that. Shortcut for the hand tool is the space bar. Okay, it is letter H if you want to go directly to the hand tool, but when you're working with any tool and you want to go to the hand tool very shortly, because when you're working with any tool, you'll be moving your image around. The shortcut to that on your keyboard is the space bar. By default, it is the space bar. And when you click on the space bar, you'll be able to be moving around. For example, if I'm using the lasso tool and I want to go to the hand tool, I press the space bar and I move my image to where I want. The moment I release the space bar, I'll go back to the lasso tool. So that is how to work with the hand tool very easily. Then the next tool that we have is a zoom tool. It helps you to magnify and to reduce the view of the image. So basically that is what the zoom tool does. I think those are the tools that we have. When you come here, we have the change screen mode. The change screen mode helps you to toggle between full screen and standard screen modes. If I'm to go to full screen, this is what I will have. So here I'll be to use this screen mode, you should be very conversant with your keyboard shortcuts, because you won't have the tools. You have to go to this side. Sometimes they won't pop up, and the panels you have to go to that side, stuff like that. But if you're working with the keyboard, it will be very easy for you to switch between different tools. So basically that is what I have for you for the tools panel. Basically that is it for the tools panel. I think I've exploited most of the tools that we need to use for photography. Thank you for watching. We shall meet in the next session.